EVPL board to, well, call to order here. All right. So the first item is the introduction and forum for visitors. I have not seen any requests to speak or anything as far as that. Correspondence is making its way around to the various board members. Thank you. This way. And that brings us to the consent agenda. We have the approval. Second. Motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Same sign opposed? The motion carries. I didn't want to take a moment, I put it in my notes, but I didn't do it at the call to order. I want to thank Oakland staff for having us here today. I want to thank my calendar for reminding me that it was at Oakland and not at Central Library, because we could all be that person that shows up where we go every time. But Oakland's a beautiful library, and we appreciate you having us here tonight. So our next item for the board is to hold the second preliminary hearing on the proposed project. If you are interested in speaking at the hearing, please make sure that you have signed the sign-in sheet, which Marcus does have in the back, and it should include your name and address. After a presentation by the administration and its advisors, there will be an opportunity for the public to make comments about the project. At the hearing, we will ask that each person limit their comments to 3 minutes and that the topic be limited to the proposed project under consideration. The notice of this preliminary determination hearing was published as legally required. The first preliminary determination hearing was held on April 10th, 2025. At this time, I will ask Heather O'Grady, EVPL COO, to explain the purpose of this hearing.
Thanks, Rick. Pursuant to Indiana Code 6-1.1-20-3.1, a library must hold 2 public hearings and adopt a resolution to preliminarily determine to issue bonds or enter a lease for a project which has a total project cost in excess of a non-controlled project. These public hearings and the adoption of the resolutions are the very beginning of the legal process. These resolutions establish the maximum financial terms for the proposed project.
We will now hear from Scott Kenny, EVPL CEO, about the process of determining and communicating the project to the community and the need for the project.
Thanks, Rick. In 2021, EVPL contracted with MKM Architecture and Design to work with staff, the EVPL board, and Vanderburgh County residents to create an EVPL master facilities plan. The plan recommendations reflected demographic trends, surveys, and evaluations of our current library buildings. Since the adoption of that plan by the EVPL Board of Trustees, EVPL administration has begun 4 library location renovation projects at McCullough, North Park, Central, and Oakland. The EVPL Red Bank location was a high priority project, but was one that required more time in which to prepare. With the assistance of our owner's representative, Veritas Group, and our architects, MKM, we assessed priorities within the EVPL Red Bank service area and compared and contrasted them with our current location site. In collaboration with our Building and Grounds Committee, we found that our current site still holds great value to the area, and with the purchase of an adjacent piece of property, we could expand the EVPL Red Bank location footprint. The purchase of that property is underway at this time. Like the prior projects, based on the assessed valuation, it is anticipated that the Red Bank project will not increase our debt service fund tax rate, also known as the bond interest and redemption fund tax rate.
Thank you, Scott. We will now hear from Lamont Kelsey, EVPL Director of Facilities and Maintenance, about how the proposed project meets the needs as described by the CEO.
Thanks, Rick. This project will either provide an addition to the current building along with a major renovation of the existing structure, or will build a new building on the existing site. The current Red Bank location was built smaller than originally intended and is not as large as our other regional locations. As part of the facilities master plan project, EVPL redefined regional branches to be the locations that are approximately 20,000 square feet in order to provide the size of a proper collection and allow for space needs. The Red Bank project is designed to expand the square footage of this location from 12,500 feet to 20,000 square feet. The project will also expand parking and will create a green space available for exterior library programming. The EVPL Red Bank addition or rebuild will provide a regional facility for the west side with amenities that the community wants and needs and that are equal to what other regional facilities like McCullough, North Park, and Oakland have currently. Additional research, study, and financial examination will be done by Veritas, MKM, and EVPL administration, which will thereby help us determine whether an addition or rebuild is the best course of action. The recommendation would go to the Building and Grounds Committee and to the EVPL board prior to a final bond sale. With some new information gathered in the last month, we expect that we'll be able to begin construction on this project in the summer or fall of 2026.
Thank you, Lamont. We will now hear from Baker Tilly LLP, our municipal advisor, about how the proposed project will be financed, as well as information about the effect on the typical property taxpayer.
Good evening, members of the board. Before I get started on my presentation, I did just want to make sure you can hear me. I am in a lovely hotel Wi-Fi environment, so I hope it's okay.
Yes.
Great, I appreciate that. Thank you for allowing me to present to the board tonight. My name is Jason Tansel. I'm director at Baker Tilly, and we represent the library as your municipal advisor. And now that we've had an opportunity to hear about the project scope and need, we will now review how the library can pay for this project through the issuance of a property tax supported bond in an amount not to exceed $12 million. We have a presentation that will review some of the financial information that is within the resolutions for your approval tonight. But please keep in mind, we are authorizing maximums, and these are maximums we cannot exceed, but we can come down from. And they include items such as the borrowing amount, repayment term, and interest rate. And so with that, I do see the presentation on the screen behind the board. So if you would please go to slide 2. Slide 2 is a schedule of the library's currently existing debt service. These are bonds that are paid out of the library's debt service fund. And you can see here that there are 3 bonds outstanding, each with repayment terms within the next 5 to 6 years. You can see that total annual payments of the library in this calendar year 2025 are $3,739,000. And all debt of the library is repaid by 2030. It is this position that the library is in that because it has a declining debt service structure, it has the ability to potentially replace these payments if it so chooses without increasing the debt service levy from the 2025 levels. The third slide is a visual. It's a graph of the 3 bonds that are currently outstanding that really paints the picture as far as annual payments in 2025 are about $3.7 million, with a steep decline in 2026 and all debt repaid by 2030. And so when we look at the 2025 year, imagine that's the library's current debt service tax rate. That's 3.65 cents. And so to the extent you were to see these payments declining, if assessed values remain constant, we would also anticipate the tax rate to decline. Our next slide is the calculation of the library's general obligation debt capacity. The bonds being discussed here tonight are general obligation bonds, and there is a limitation as to how much an entity can issue. This limitation is 2% of 1/3 of the most recently certified net assessed value, which you can see for EVPL is about $9.3 billion. Once we factor in that there are 3 other general obligation bonds outstanding in the amount of $9,625,000, that leaves $52.4 million available to the library for general obligation bonds. So the $12 million being discussed here tonight fits well within that parameter. On slide 5, you will see the maximum parameters and estimates that would be within your resolutions this evening. Again, the maximum borrowing amount is $12 million, and this is a not to exceed. We would estimate that approximately 11.7 million would be available for the project after bond cost of issuance. Also within the resolutions, you would find a maximum repayment term of 15 years, and the library would have the choice at its discretion to shorten this repayment term at a later date if it so chooses. Estimated interest expense is $5,347,000. This is based upon a 5% interest rate. The maximum allowable interest rate within your resolutions is 6% to provide flexibility to the library should anything unforeseen happen in the bond market in the future. Again, you would see that the annual debt service is $3,739,000. That goes back to the 2025 annual payments that are also $3,739,000. So we would not anticipate at this point in time an increase to the debt service tax rate, assuming assessed values remain constant. The last the last three rows of this presentation are other items required to be available. They are current and proposed annual debt service divided by net assessed value. You can see that's 0.04%. And direct and overlapping debt of other entities is 5.55%. Next slide, please. Our sixth and final slide is a visual of what this 15-year repayment term would look like when taking into account the three other bonds that are currently outstanding of the library. Again, you would see in the top right corner, this is a summary table of the maximums as far as borrowing amount and repayment term. But you can see that the graph itself, the gray bars represent the three bonds currently outstanding we reviewed on slides 2 and 3. And the teal or blue color bars would represent the proposed 15-year repayment term. And we have a line graph as well that would represent our estimated tax rate associated with this project. Again, these are maximums. This 15-year repayment term is the maximum allowable, so the library could always choose to shorten this if it desired to do so. With that, I would be happy to answer any questions about the financing or turn it back over to the board.
Any questions?
Yes. So what would that chart number 6 look like if you had a 10-year payback term?
For a 10-year repayment term, we would still maintain a little bit of the step down in 2028, but imagine removing 5 annual payments from 36 to 40 and adding those to those annual payments from 2030 to 2035. So the payments from 2030 to 2035, for example, could increase. Of course, we would be able to save interest expense on a 10-year term compared to a 5-year term, or excuse me, compared to a 15-year term.
I think last time you said $800,000, $900,000 would be saved by shortening the term.
Also, question, most time you get a little bit better interest rate if you have a shorter term. Does the term not affect what the interest rate is?
So to answer, those are great questions. To answer the first question, at the April meeting, we had discussed how a 12-year repayment term would provide an estimated interest expense of $4.5 million. So yes, we would save about $800,000 of interest expense if the library were to pursue a 12-year term. And then to answer the second question of, is the interest rate lower on a shorter repayment term? Yes, currently the bond market, that would be true, to where the interest rate on a 10-year term would be lower than the interest rate on a 15-year term. Also, just keep in mind that thinking about future flexibility is that if we increase those payments in 2028, 2029, 2030, so on and so forth, that does potentially remove some flexibility for the library in the future if there were other potential capital needs throughout the district.
Well, going back to the chart we got here,
Mm-hmm.
if we shortened it up to 10 to 12 years, would the yield still be far less than what we have for 2025 repayment?
I'm sorry, what would be less? Could you repeat that, please?
The different bars we have, even if we shortened up to a 12 or 10-year payback, wouldn't the teal portion of the line for those years past 2025 still be less than what we have in 2025?
Yes, they would be, correct. They would still be less. We would still estimate that Again, we would not be asking for additional levy in 2026 or 2027, so there would not be an estimated increase to the debt service levy of the library.
So we still have a good deal of extra capacity, if we had to have something else in 4 or 5 years.
We would estimate there would be capacity in 4 to 5 years. Yes, if you chose a 10-year repayment term, there just could be less, so to speak, less capacity, less flexibility.
About 1.5 billion still left over, wouldn't it be?
I'm sorry, would you be able to repeat that question?
Just rounding up, say something like 1.5 million per year would still be available if compared to what we're paying in 2025.
We can look at the scenario as far as what would be available. Again, tonight, these are just maximums that are being approved. And so we can always look at evaluating a shorter repayment term if that is the desire of the board.
Yeah, well, it was last time, I thought you were going to bring it this time, actually, but you said you would bring another chart this time.
We had spoken to the administration about potentially another option to bring to the board to consider, but given that we want to be consistent with the first preliminary determination in April and in May, and just keeping in mind that these are our maximums, we're happy to provide these shorter repayment terms again after potentially any project approval.
Not the administration voting tonight, it's the board. And the board had asked for something like that, and it's not being prepared for us tonight.
That was based on advice from our legal counsel, our bond legal counsel.
Not to give us information we need to vote.
No, to keep the amounts consistent with the original.
Because the resolutions are all written as the maximums. Because you're not setting the actual bond sale amount tonight or those exact terms. So the resolution, which we'll get to next, is all written. Kristen actually is on here now. I was just seeing if she got on. Kristen, do you want to explain that about the maximums and why we kept it to the maximum?
I understand. I just want to be sure that the numbers are there and as well presented as possible early in the process, so we can begin making a decision whether we want to do a 12-year term or a 15-year term. Even though the documentation may say maximum, we still may want to be deciding at this point what we're going to be doing.
I have a question. So on refinancing down the road, I mean, you talked about capacity and, you know, wanting to pay a little extra, basically $800,000 extra to get what I would consider additional capacity. That was the purpose of the 15-year note, is to get additional capacity for the future, which in essence cost $800,000 to get that. But I guess my question is, what if you went shorter term and then when the interest rates got more favorable, then could you refinance for a longer term at that point when the interest rates for a longer term are more favorable? And what would be how many basis points difference would you get from a 12 to 15-year note?
Those are great questions as far as potential redemption of these bonds. For the bond municipal market, it is not similar to how we would potentially refinance our mortgages. As far as if rates are favorable, we can just refinance immediately. What we evaluate are what we call redemption dates, and a standard redemption date for a municipal bond is 10 years. And so looking at the repayment term of a 10-year bond, we may not be in a place that those bonds would be callable. So they may not be able to have the option to actually be redeemed, even if interest rates were lowered, since these are fixed rate bonds. So we can evaluate the redemption provisions, but it is not similar to how we refinance our mortgages. We do have to wait based upon laws that are written as far as how as far as the rates we can use and when we can use them with certain call dates.
Okay.
Just give me a rough number. If we were at $800,000 less on the total payback and we spread it over 12 years, would that mean we'd be increasing the annual payback by $75,000 a year?
Yeah, sure. So if you give me a second here. the 12-year term, instead of a 15-year term, again, the 12-year term has an interest expense of $4.5 million, estimated with a 5% interest rate. And the annual payments, from 2030 to 2037 would increase by approximately $350,000 annually.
Okay, follow-up question. What if we did the 15-year note, but we paid more money than what it costs for on each payment? So in essence, it's set up to be paid off in 12 years. Do we still retain our flexibility for the longer term building? Because I thought the whole purpose of looking at 15 versus a shorter term was to have this flexibility for the,
When I'm talking about flexibility,
Tax
I
rate.
mean that those little teal things there will be shortened up, but will be a little bit higher each year. But we'll still have enough flexibility to be far beyond, far below the amount we're paying out next year too. So we still have flexibility of $1 million or so a year that we buy another bond if we want to. Bond council can talk about it, but I think bonds are usually pretty well fixed. Banks can be flexible that way on loans.
right,
but
I know that, and so that's why I was asking. I didn't know if bonds could do the same thing.
So I think the misunderstanding is whether you do what you call a note or a bond, it's still a bond under state law. So the levy has to be fixed. You could try if a bank would agree to a lower redemption, like if they would agree to redeem after 5 years, again, not knowing what the interest rate would be, because there's an interest rate cost to a shorter redemption period. You could make payments, but you will only be able to levy what we have when we sell the bonds. So those paying more would actually have to come from a different fund than your levy debt service fund. So it's a bond process, no matter what we call it, it is a bond under state law, even if it's purchased by a bank and booked as a loan.
Okay.
Any further questions?
So if we approve this today as it's presented, we are still not fixing the payback period. We're just fixing the maximum amount for the bond issuance. So should the board take the choice that we want to reduce this to a 12-year or a 10-year, whatever the dollars will allow us to do, if that's our pleasure, we can still do that. All we're doing is fixing the top number right now. Correct.
Yeah, and I think the difference here, just to go backwards, and you may have already talked about it, is this is a controlled project. You all usually have non-controlled, so you don't have to go through a project approval and a bond approval. Usually, we're just doing the bond approvals with you. This is the project approval because it's controlled. So you're absolutely right. This is setting maximums. You can always come under as we're going through the bond approvals that are set forth in that timetable. You can just never go over. And that's what's required for a controlled project versus the non-controlled that we were able to do in the past.
Thank you.
But any decision, ultimate decision still comes back to the board. I mean, if you approve this, it's still, that doesn't just like, okay, administration, it's in your hands now,
I
right?
understand there's 2 or 3
No,
more.
this is an extra step. When you do a controlled, these 2 hearings are extra steps. And then, of course, the publication, if you adopt the resolution as an extra step, then we do everything that we've always done in the past with the board, where you come back and you approve that final bond resolution with the term, all those things. This is just an additional requirement because of the amount for this project.
Further? Okay, we will now open the public hearing. Remember, if you would like to speak, please sign in on the sheet, which is located with Marcus Mercer, EVPL Administrative Assistant. As I mentioned earlier, we ask that you state your name and address, limit your comments to the proposed project and financing, keep any comments for 3 minutes, and avoid being repetitive if possible. Is there anyone on the signage?
Yes, sir.
Would anyone else like to speak? Anyone? Hearing no one and seeing no one else coming forward, no one braving the rest of the rain. I thank everyone who participated and presented, information during this hearing. We appreciate your time and interest in the projects and the future of our community. Please note that this is the first step in the legal process. The board will continue to work with the administration and its professionals to look for efficiencies to conserve tax dollars, as this conversation has demonstrated. We will now close the public hearing portion of our meeting and reopen our regular board meeting. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Same sign opposed? Motion carries. We now come to item 6, governance and the adoption of preliminary determination resolution. With the closing of the second preliminary determination hearing, the board is now presented with a preliminary determination resolution for consideration. The resolution sets forth the maximum term of the bond issue, maximum annual payment, maximum annual debt service levy, and maximum annual debt service rate. Other information, including estimated principal amount, estimated interest rates, total interest costs, current debt service levy and rate, an estimated increase of the same, and a statement of the purpose of the bonds are also required. Once this resolution is adopted, the library must publish the notice of the adoption of preliminary determination and mail the same to the proper county clerk and any organization which has previously requested a notice of preliminary determination. I seek a motion on this resolution. A motion and a second. Any comments or discussion? You can do a roll call for that.
Yeah.
Hearing none, we will do a roll call vote, and I will start with trustee Keeper.
So I'm voting, I'll vote yes with the understanding that, this is going to have further opportunity in the future to have a shorter term, shorter time periods, and that, with that understanding, I'll vote yes.
Trustee Williams.
Yes.
Trustee Stewart Thomas.
Yes.
Trustee Stubbs.
Yes.
Trustee Hoover.
Yes.
Trustee Musgrave.
Yes.
All of that, the motion carries. And we will move on to the preliminary bond resolution. This preliminary bond resolution establishes the maximum amount to be borrowed, the maximum term of repayment, and maximum interest rate. I seek a motion on this.
All right.
Second. A motion and a second. Any discussion?
Again, the key word being maximum.
Maximum, and we'll have opportunity to adjust as we move forward. We'll have a roll call vote on this also. Trustee Keeper.
Yes.
Trustee Williams.
Yes.
Trustee Stewart Thomas.
Yes.
Trustee Stubbs.
Yes.
Trustee Hoover.
Yes.
Trustee Musgrave.
Yes.
Motion carried. And that moves us on to items number 7, the finance report. Report of appropriations. And I assume. Oh, that's right. I'm looking around. Lori's not here. Who's
I
here?
have the paper to sign, but Rob
Trustee
is doing all of
Musgrave.
it.
Appropriations, or do you want to do investments?
First item is 7A, report of appropriations.
No,
No.
the appropriations is the operating fund where it is with the percent balance.
Wait, fine. Yeah, make it be this document. Yes. It's pretty easy. We've gone it before several times. Basically, the last column should be at about 67% because we're about the third way through the year. And I will pick the first four, which are the highest items, which are personnel costs, and they're hitting right at 68, 69, 70%. So we're looking good there. Everything else, we're actually looking like we have not spent up to a third of the amount, but we have some more money coming back spend later on. But otherwise, overall, we're at 72%. So we're well, 5 percentage points in excess of what we should be on the budget.
Any questions? Next item is the report of investments to date. Trustee Musgrave, please. Got that one?
I have a chat. Yeah, investment balances, basically, you can see this, we've had, well, 67,756 interest through the end of April, which means we're looking at 200,000 plus or minus by the end of the year. And we're taking away at about a 4.296 average daily yield in April, which is better than my bank account rates.
Any questions or comments? Ready for item number 7C, the approval of bills.
If you look at page 48, you'll see the proposal, which is a total of $1,043,271.78 in total invoices through the end of May 8, 2025. And then you have the April 4 and April 18 payrolls, 278,807 and 544, 173.63 respectively. I ask that they all be approved.
So moved.
A motion and a second. Any questions or comments? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Same sign opposed. Motion carries.
I want to take 1 second to thank Lori for giving me credit notes so I can do all of this today.
You guys are passing around one, you do have to sign for the.
Yep. It's that way.
Perfect.
So we're ready for item number 8, other business. 8A is central renovation change order number 3.
So change order number 3, we brought it to the Building and Grounds Committee. So at Central Library, we have a proposed change amount in the amount of $19,572. The majority of that falling in the categories of our VFDs that we replaced on our air handlers. We have all 10 of them replaced now on our 5 air handlers. And when we started to replace them, realized that the wiring didn't line up on the new VFDs. So we had to go through and do some rework and figure out how to mount these efficiently on the air handlers or near the air handlers without having to pull all new wire, because this could have been a very costly change order with having to run new wire, but we were able to get with the engineer. And so changing how we mounted the VFDs and doing some wiring extension was the majority of the change order. There was a couple other power and data drops that we added as we got our FF&E package finalized. We changed the type of furniture that was going in, so we had to add some outlets to the walls because we weren't using so much cubicles anymore as the original wiring was. We were going to more of a modular furniture, so we had to add actual wall outlets and data drops to the wall. So the total amount of change order number 3 is $19,572.
Do I hear a motion?
Perfect.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Just that the Building and Grounds Committee had a long debate over what a DFD was. So, yeah.
Lamont said it straight.
And I am educated now.
Hearing none, brother, all those in favor? Aye. Same sign opposed. That motion carries as well. We are now ready for the staff spot.
No staff spot.
Yep.
Oh,
I think that has some exciting news to share.
that was
News to share.
Welcome to Oakland. My name is Beth Hyman. I'm the manager here at Oakland. I've been with the EVPL for 9 years. I've been here at Oakland as manager for 4 years, and I was at Red Bank as manager for 5 years before that. I will be leaving at the end of the month. My family and I are moving back to Nashville, and I've accepted a position with Williamson County Public Library there. So I want to say thank you for my time here at EVPL. It's been amazing. I've worked for several library systems throughout my career, and this is by far my favorite. So it's very bittersweet to be leaving. So thank you all. Do you want to announce? You can. So they have found a replacement for me already. Is Becky Miller, who is actually currently Red Bank manager right now. So she'll be starting on June 2nd. So yeah.
After much discussion,
Yes.
Becky decided to move laterally into this position and continue to grow her professional career with EVPL in a new location. I think she's made an excellent choice. Oakland team was very excited to have Becky starting out here. And as I'm sure you probably saw, we have now an opening at Red Bank for a manager, so we will be hopefully filling that in the coming weeks. Thank you, Beth.
Yeah, thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you.
Best of luck in Nashville.
Thank you.
Enjoy the traffic.
Forward to that.
Seems like with all the construction, we've done our best to prepare you for what.
Yes.
Anything else?
Sure, just quickly, here's my confusion. I had Beth marked as one of my announcements. That
Oh,
you
okay.
missed. And we will dearly miss her and her leadership. She's been great for the 5 years that I've been here, obviously. But we are excited for Becky. You know, it's not a requirement to be a previous Red Bank manager to come to Oakland. It just happened that way. But we are glad to have Becky come over here as well. I know the staff are excited, as well as that Beth is leaving. The last announcement I have is we've heard some great positive feedback from staff and patrons, both the custodial crew, again, doing a wonderful job with all the construction going on at all of our locations, from North Park, which we finished now, but Central in particular, with all the dust and havoc that we're causing. They are still keeping that place clean and neat, and we're getting lots of positive feedback about how well the job they're doing. So thanks to Lamont and Tracy and that whole team. Facilities obviously doing a great job handling all the construction, working with our contractors. Lamont in particular bears the brunt of the majority of that, if not the entirety of that. I know Steve and this crew stepped in there as well, but just want to thank him too, because it is a lot going on. That is a large building with multiple sections of construction going on with various floors and space.
I'll give one more announcement, only because if I wait until June, you won't have time to prepare. But at the June meeting, which will be back at Central on Thursday, June 12th, when you're done with the board meeting, you can just walk on down to the Victory Theater for the next speak event, which is the same night. Super exciting for all of us, a very long day. Kwame Alexander will be in town. We're very excited about that, so I just wanted to remind you of our next speaker.
And then, one other announcement, I'll go through real quick from the, Library Foundation. I wasn't able to get with you about placing it. We usually put it on other business. But the Library Foundation had our, quarterly meeting in April on the 23rd at 4:30 p.m. down at Central. And we had an investment report, from our advisor. We're kind of maintaining, there with the uncertain market, about $1.1 million in overall assets. We continue to discuss recruitment of board members. Remember, I think it's still uncertain where Barb is, right? I think so. I don't know how many openings per se there are, but we continue to discuss recruitment. And the approval of minutes, financial report. Scott gave his ex officio report. We talked about outreach and fundraising. And 2025 book sales so far. The spring mini book sale was $6,088.75, which is a net of $5,088.75 after the $1,000 startup cash. That was very successful, and we discussed the August book sale coming up at Washington Square. And we discussed the disposition of the furniture and equipment that was accessed at our last board meeting. And that is the report from your correspondent, Victor Vanderburgh Foundation. Any other items to come before the board tonight?
I just want to say, I would give high accommodation to the advertisement and all of the information. The dates are far in advance that we can get it out, that people can see it, hopefully attend. I'm certainly going to calendar it. And so much good information in here. So whoever is doing that, thank you. And I will tell you, looking back over a couple, 2, 3, 4 years, we have come a mighty long way. So thank you so much.
And summer starts soon. I should tell Erica would, yeah, it's in there. It's ripping off. Well, you have a sneak peek right underneath it, so you actually don't put that out in the community yet.
Don't turn it around.
Not yet, not
Don't
yet.
turn around.
What day next week?
Wednesday.
Wednesday, the 14th, you can do it.
Look forward to it.
I got a sneak peek. Yeah.
All right, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Carries, motion carries. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it.
Exactly.